All right, cool. All right, so I am officially live. Or we are officially live and streaming. Let me turn it off here so it's not a crazy echo or anything weird. All right, so first time doing this. So y'all, as I said before, we build it as we're flying. I'm actually excited to be doing this. I've always wanted to stream onto YouTube. So as much as I've been on social media and been a social media influencer, there's always a lot of things you've never done that are pretty basic to a lot of other people. So very excited to have a recruiter cousin on here, Shanae, who is a tech recruiter influencer. And it's just really dope. Yeah. So just to go over everything with everyone really quickly. So for those of you that are here on StreamYard with us, those of you that are part of the Patreon community, that's exactly how it works, like what Raven just said. So this is a private chat room. So many of you have already posted your questions on Instagram and not on Instagram. Many of you have posted your questions on our Patreon, and but for any live questions you all want to submit in, you're gonna put it right here in the in the chat, in the private chat room. So if at any point in time, I am open. If at any point in time someone says, "Hey, my question is very detailed and it's not something I can kind of type in," if it's something, you need to come on here, then we'll let you pop in on here. The only reason right now I just have it as myself and Shanae is so that it makes it easier for when my videographer edits this and cuts this up later and posts this inside of our Patreon community. It makes it simpler when it's just two people there instead of like a bunch of different people. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get the party started. And again, y'all send in as many questions as y'all want. And if y'all start running out of questions, I'm gonna look over at the YouTube chat and see if they got some questions. But again, y'all are the community. We're doing this for you all. So submit your questions. We'll prioritize all of your questions. And if you all continue submitting questions, then realistically, we're only going to be addressing your questions. We're not going to be on here too long because Shanae, her and I literally just got off of her live with her community. And so I don't want her to be too burnt out. She's a wife and she has a life and all of that stuff. So so we're gonna the goal is to wrap up at 9:30 and we'll hop up off this thing. So as I mentioned, we're gonna prioritize the questions that you all already submitted before. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to those right now. And then we'll get into it. All right. So, and again, for anybody who's just now tuning in, whether on here from the Patreon community, you all are here in the private chat room on StreamYard, or for those that are watching this being broadcasted on YouTube. My name is Cyrus Harbin. I'm the founder of Tech is the New Black. Where we talk about basically all things tech. Our main focus is helping people break into the tech industry or scale their career or income in this industry. But also we talk about tech news in general. We talk about different updates of what's happening in this industry because there's a lot of stuff happening that we think there's great value for people to be aware of. But that being said, we will gonna go ahead and go on with my guest that we have right here, which is Shanae Urquhart, also known as Recruiter Cousin, where she is a very, very big time tech recruiter who has a big heart. She was one of our first guests on Tech is the New Black, and has the same way I work to help people get in tech. It's literally her 9 to 5 and her 6 to 9 to help people get in tech. So very grateful to have Shanae on here. And that being said, we'll go ahead and get the party started.
Hey y'all.
All right, bet. All right, so and Shanae, I'm gonna let you cover most of these questions. All right, so our first question we have from Keandra Spence. Keandra asks, Shanae, what are your top 3 tips on how to effectively use LinkedIn to increase your funnel, aka reach, also known as reach? So I guess like three tips that you would give for LinkedIn.
Yeah. So the first thing I would do is I would go to the jobs tab and I would put in your skill set that the jobs have asked you to put in. And the reason for that is because the jobs tab will send you the jobs that relate to the skill set that you outline in that jobs tab. So put in those skill sections, that skill set that you have on your resume, turn on your notifications so that LinkedIn can send you any jobs that relate to your skill set. So that's the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do is once you turn that jobs tab on, or you can actually do this vice versa, go to your LinkedIn and please make sure your LinkedIn is updated. Here's what I mean by that. Your LinkedIn should look like your resume. The great part about LinkedIn is LinkedIn allows you to add character, and it allows you to add a little bit more kind of fleshing out of your skill sets than your resume, because your resume at that point will get entirely too long. Your LinkedIn is completely fine to add some of the things that you wouldn't be able to add on your resume. So I would fill every single category that a LinkedIn allows us to fill. So put in your about section, definitely put in your skills in the skills section. Make sure you have all of your experience and not just your experience in terms of the company you work for and your job title, but make sure you have the actual job responsibilities on your LinkedIn listed out as you would on your resume. I say that because a lot of hiring managers, they will go to your LinkedIn and they will try to figure out if you meet their minimum qualifications for a role even before the recruiter gets to it. If you don't have your job responsibilities outlined on your LinkedIn in each job like you would have in your resume, it will be difficult for the hiring manager to understand what you're good at and what you did in that specific job. So have it outlined. And then the next thing I would do is definitely, like I said, have your skill section. And what I love that people kind of sleep on is there is a spot at the bottom of your LinkedIn profile that allows people to write you recommendations. So have people write you recommendations, even if the hiring manager and recruiter don't read them, because I normally don't really read them word for word. Sometimes I just kind of see if they're there to see if who would say great things about you, and then if those recommendations were recent. And part of that is because you know how on our resumes we put recommendation available upon request or references available upon request. If you have those already on your LinkedIn and your LinkedIn acting as your floating resume, then it kind of takes away a step for the recruiter or the hiring manager to have to wait to ask for whatever additional information that they're looking for to see if you're the right fit. So that's the second thing, but you can absolutely use that as the first thing. And I think the third thing that I would probably do is to make sure you're engaging. And here's why I say this. A lot of us, we will create LinkedIns and then we will leave the LinkedIn and be on other social media platforms like IG and TikTok and Facebook and Twitter and all that, right? All that is great. But LinkedIn is normally used and very much so regularly used as the platform for you to actually find a job. So don't create your LinkedIn and then leave it and be social on other social media platforms. Use your LinkedIn to start liking posts, what LinkedIn calls reacting. So liking posts, loving posts, celebrating posts, being curious about posts, marking posts as insightful, and also commenting. The reason for that is what LinkedIn does that other social media platforms don't do is if Cyrus and I are connected on LinkedIn and I'm looking for a job, if Cyrus has someone in his network that posted about I'm trying to hire a recruiter, for example. If I'm looking for a recruiting role, Cyrus can type on that person's comment or post, and then he could commenting for reach, or he can react to it. And because I'm connected to Cyrus, but I may not be connected to the person who's looking to fill the role, because I'm connected to Cyrus, it's going to show up on my timeline that Cyrus commented on this person, and you could very well start following the path of his activity or my activity to find what you're looking for. And that's what I love about LinkedIn. It connects people in a way that other people's stuff can show up on your timeline if you're not already in their network. So start commenting, liking, and just subscribing to people's company pages and engaging in that way. Because what I noticed as a recruiter is I pay attention to people who always show up in my comments, who always show up in my DMs, who always have a question. And part of that is because not only are they prepared, but I can tell that they're really trying. And so if I have somebody, if Cyrus is looking for an engineer, for example, if he says, yo, Nay, do you have an engineer that I'm trying to find somebody and I can't really fill the role. Do you have somebody? If I have an engineer that's constantly commenting and they're trying, most likely I am absolutely going to take that engineer that I've been engaging with on LinkedIn and give them to Cyrus. It's just as simple as that. So I actually did that yesterday. So definitely make sure you're doing those 3 things and I think you'll be successful.
All right, good stuff. Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm happy that you doubled down on the why. I was literally about to ask that. So thank you for addressing just the value of being on LinkedIn. One of the things I say to people all the time, the reason why I'm on Instagram so much is because I make money off of Instagram, and it's like my business, my brand, all of that stuff is on Instagram. But it's like, look, if you want to make money off social media, there's no faster way to make money off social media than to be on LinkedIn, because yeah, LinkedIn isn't paying you, but it's paying you via you getting a high paying job. So yeah, when I was trying to get in tech, despite I had a pretty large following, but when I was trying to get in tech, I took all my attention away from Instagram. After I finished the boot camp, I put all my attention on LinkedIn. I was treating LinkedIn like it was my favorite social media platform. So yeah, y'all, for those of y'all that are getting in tech, and let's say you're obsessed with TikTok or obsessed with Instagram, obsessed with any of those other platforms, yeah, I agree with Shanae. Maybe take a bit of a pause or slow down and refocus your energy onto LinkedIn. And again, treat that social media like the place to get a job. So yeah, love that. Thank you so much, Shanae. All right, so next question. And I see y'all posting. I see the community posting questions in the chat. I appreciate y'all for doing that. Make sure that you're still posting questions in the chat. First, I'm gonna continue asking questions that y'all already put in the Patreon. In the Patreon comments, I'm going to address those first, and then I'm going to immediately pivot over and come to the questions that y'all are putting in this private chat. Super cool. And whatever questions that y'all don't we don't get to specifically for the Patreon community, whatever questions, if we don't end up getting to all of the questions, then I will, I'll send the questions over to Shanae and see if sometime this week when she has time, if she can just jot up a quick answer for it. So that way, and then I'll post it in the Patreon. Yeah. All right. Super cool. Super cool. So next question. All right, what are some major mistakes? And so this is in the Keandra also asked, this is the next part. She said, what are some major mistakes people are making with their LinkedIn profiles?
Part of it, honestly, is it not being complete. That's the number one thing. Whenever I am sourcing for a specific role, there may be for example, if I'm trying to fill a senior software engineer role, and I find a senior software engineer on LinkedIn, and I send that profile over to the hiring manager, that senior software engineer may not have what they actually did. They may just have the company and that they were a senior software engineer, but we don't know what they did. And so that is probably the hardest thing to overcome whenever, as a recruiter, if I'm sourcing, it's the hardest thing to overcome when trying to sell a candidate to a hiring manager if your profile isn't complete. I think one of the second things that people that may be wrong with their profile is they don't have a picture on their profile, which can be difficult sometimes. Wow. You would be, Cyrus, you'd be surprised at how many people don't have pictures. I've heard that part of it is because they may not want their company to know that they're looking for another position, so they may hide their picture and try to hide their profile from somebody who may be trying to give them a hard time about leaving their position, which sucks because it's hard to have to be able to kind of see who you are to understand kind of your level of skill set. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we need to actually see you. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, because that can absolutely create unconscious bias. What I'm saying is it's the combination of having an incomplete profile and you don't have a picture. So what's hard is, to the point about not having a picture, what can be difficult for me is if you don't have a picture and I send you a message on LinkedIn in hopes that you're interested in this position, I'm not too sure if you're going to see it, because I'm also going to look at your level of activity and see how often you engage. because I'm still going to send you the message anyway. But in the back of my mind, I'm going to wonder if you're going to respond or how long it's going to take you to respond. Because if your activity is once a week or once a month, then it may take you a minute to get to my message if you even see it. And I hate that, because then that becomes a missed opportunity for the candidate. So that's probably two things that can kind of play against the candidate. And then I think the third thing that I would possibly say is making sure that skill section part of the LinkedIn profile is actually complete. So, and you can also have people endorse your skills and all of that. So I would just say to very much like the same way we be on TikTok and learning these dances and doing remixes on Instagram is the same way we need to work our LinkedIn profiles and be able to follow that up with a presence on LinkedIn so that it can help you land a job. And I'm a proponent of LinkedIn because that's how I got my current job. Like, I literally wasn't even looking for a job, and my profile was complete, and all LinkedIn did was send me the link saying that this company is looking for recruiters, you should apply. And I was like, cool. So LinkedIn kind of did the work for me. So I think if you have your profile complete, and then make sure you have your notifications on and have them strategically placed on from certain people, from certain companies, from certain jobs, I think you'll be successful, but you definitely have to have a strategy.
Yeah, I love that so much. After I gotten my job in tech, my first job, I started making content on LinkedIn. And at first it was just because initially I was kind of like, oh, I don't care to be a social media influencer anymore, because now I have a 6-figure career in tech. So I was like, well, bump other social medias. So I just enjoyed making content and posting it on LinkedIn. And come to my surprise, that also gave me so much exposure that buku companies were reaching out to me. And that's when I realized the magic. I was like, man, I said, yeah, this is great for it. And I regretted the fact that I didn't do more of that type of TikTok style content on LinkedIn before I got a job.
Yeah.
And so, because I was like, man, I saw the value of it after I had a job. I was like, man, if I had done this before I got a job, I probably would have got something significantly faster. Yeah. But also I would say, just to that, for anyone who, you get in tech, continue doing the pieces that she said. Don't think, okay, I got a job, I'm good, I'm gonna kick my feet up now. Because I think one of the best ways to insulate yourself also goes in line with what she said. And what I mean, insulate yourself, but basically build up a following and a community that if you end up being, your company ends up, going bust or something, or you want to have another opportunity, like one of the greatest ways is to grow your reach on LinkedIn, and then you'll have a large community of other companies that'll be checking for you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Shanae. And then, all right. So next question that we have is from Dom. Dom submitted a question earlier asking, what are tips on how to set yourself apart as someone with no experience competing against those with years of experience in interviews?
Oh, good question. So that actually brings me to my templates. So I have job seeker templates that I created everywhere from the very conception of you applying to jobs all the way until you get to day one, and even after that. So when you're in an interview, there are certain questions that you can ask that makes you look like a standout candidate, and or it makes you not look like a pushover. And I say pushover because that's the most professional thing that I could think of. So there are certain questions that I've asked in my interviews that I've actually gotten from my mentor and my coach because she's my mentor and my coach at the same time, even to this day. And there are certain things that the way she explained on how to ask certain questions can make interviewers go, oh, I've never been asked that, or I've never kind of thought about it that way. And one of those questions, I'll just give you a freebie. One of those questions that I asked is, what on my resume made you think I was the right fit for this role and even got me to this point? And they'll go, oh, okay. And so one, it helps me as a candidate. It helps me understand if you read my resume. It helps me understand if you paid attention to my resume. And I'm not here to meet a quota. Are you actually considering me? Or Or like, what was it on my resume specifically that you saw that made me get to this point and want to be able to interview me? What was it that intrigued you about my skill set before even meeting me that made me get here? And so to an interviewer who is not insecure, that's not going to piss them off, or that's not going to offend them in any way. Because I believe the same way that we are drilled in interviews, at the point where an interviewer says, do you have any questions for me? It is our turn now to make sure we ask certain questions to where we become the interviewer, so then we can understand if we actually want to work here. Because we forget we also have the power of yes and no. So the goal is, do I actually want to work here? I need to be able to get some answers out of some of these interviewers so I can understand if I actually want to work here. Are they putting a mask on for this particular interview, or are they like this every single day? So you need to be able to ask certain questions so that you can actually pinpoint what is it that you like about what they said and what is it that you don't like. And if in between the two, do you want to move forward based on how they answered?
You know, that's so crazy. So, because obviously everyone's familiar with recruiters asking, or interviewers rather, asking the question, like, you know, just basically, hey, well, do you have any questions for us? And more often than not, especially when I was younger, I would say, oh no. And I thought it was good. I would say, oh no, I've already done research on your company. And I would basically say, like, no, I know I have all the answers to everything that I need to know. And I thought that made me stand out. But basically what you're saying is that that's a strategic point to actually stand out, is to ask unique questions.
Mm-hmm. And here's the thing: it's nothing wrong with saying that I did my research. I did my research, and you pretty much answer a lot of my questions. So that means that you're also respecting the interviewer's time, so that you make sure that you don't ask questions that they technically already answered, because that also goes to your listening too. So you have to be strategic on what kind of questions that you ask, to make sure that you're not having the interviewers repeat themselves. To your point about, I've done my research already and I think this is a great company, I would take that a step further and I would say, I've done my research on your company and I see that the core values of this company are this, this, and this. Can you tell me a little bit about what this particular position that I'm interviewing for and your positions with the company, how are you all contributing to the core values of the company to push the envelope to make sure we are exceeding the core values every single day?
Wow.
And so then it makes them go.
Yeah, I was literally about to ask, what would, I guess, usually be the outcome of a question like that?
It makes them answer the question. It simply just makes them think like, well, what am I doing every single day to make sure that we are aligned with the core values? Again, you can also figure out if they're serious about those core values, or are you walking into something that you really shouldn't want to walk into. So I mean, essentially, most of the time, an interviewer is gonna, if they're used to a question like that, then they'll be able to answer on the spot. There are also times where interviewers may have to actually sit back and think about maybe some of the programs that they have going on that helps push the envelope toward the core values and how the company is currently growing within those core values. But you want to make sure that you set the tone of, yes, I've done my research, but my question that's not on the job description is based on the job description that I have read and based on the position that I am currently interviewing for. Can you tell me a little bit about how this particular position will push the envelope forward to the core values? And if you don't mind sharing a little bit about what you all engage in every single day, or some projects that you have going on that will also contribute to the core values, and be able to spit those core values. So then that way the interviewers be like, dang, like they really do know their stuff. That's how you stand.
Yeah, that's good. That's actually really good. That's some good gems. Those are definitely some things I guess I haven't even considered, because yeah, of course, I always tell people, I think I applied it well over, first getting into the industry, I'd applied just to get in about well over 300 companies and probably had about roughly 40 or 50 interviews. And at some point I started realizing, like, hey, maybe I should ask some valuable questions. But I mean, like these questions are like above and beyond anything that I was able to come up with asking. So
again, I credit my mentor, because my mentor put me on to some. She's been a recruiter for 20 plus years, so she put me on to some stuff that helped me kind of like, oh, okay, this is how you show confidence in an interview. And granted, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be the standout candidate or you'll get the job every single time, but it also means that you have enough confidence to be able to ask certain questions so that you know what you're walking into. Because at this point, we all know that some jobs are advertised as one thing, and you go into the job and you start doing something totally different. So I would ask something along the lines of what this position entails and how it's moving forward toward the core values, so that you don't walk in blindly thinking that you're going to do one thing and you end up doing something totally different.
Oh, so this is really good, man. I have so many questions, kind of like going on a tangent based on the points that you made. But I want to honor our community and make sure that we're addressing the questions that they submitted. That being said, we are roughly at the halfway point. So what we're gonna do really quickly for everyone who's watching right now on YouTube, I'm actually we're gonna end the live broadcast, and we're gonna keep this exclusively just for our Patreon community. So for anybody who does want to, I see a lot of people on YouTube asking questions. Unfortunately, we're only addressing the questions from our Patreon community. So if you want to continue watching the rest of the live, because I'm about to end the broadcast, if you want to continue, you can join the community and submit your questions in here. Or, you know, I guess you can, we'll post some of the clips from the recap on social media afterwards. But appreciate y'all who've been tuning in from YouTube. I'm about to end the broadcast now. You can either go to my Instagram or go to the YouTube, and you can see the Patreon link to join somewhere. Gonna end the broadcast now and just talk to keep it to the Patreon community.